Hello and welcome to Full Tech Ahead. I'm your host, Amanda Razzani, and with me today I have Karen Cohen. She's the VP of Product Management at Apiiro. How are you doing today?
I'm very good, Amanda. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Doing well, and I'm happy to have you here on the show today. Can you share a little bit about yourself and then the company Apiiro? What do y'all do?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So I'll start with Apiiro. I think it'll be easier. So Apiiro, we're an application security posture management platform. Our customers are mostly large enterprises, so banks, retailers, insurance companies, and Apiiro does three things very, very well. So we analyze their code so they actually know what they have. So we build this in-depth inventory of all the code components that make up their applications. And then number two is we help them cut through the noise. So we use signals from code to runtime, and we help them assess what's truly exploitable, internet exposed, so they're not just looking at some onboarding project and trying to fix things there. And then number three is we help them prevent risks with automated guardrails and workflows across their software development lifecycle. But at the end of the day, what really matters is that we help them move very, very fast with AI without losing control of their risk. And that gets me very, very excited.
Fantastic. Well, that brings us to the topic today, which y'all just did a research report about the use of AI assistance and AI coding. Can you share a little bit about this report? Who did you study? What was the purpose? And then we'll go from there.
All right. So, you know how recently we've seen all these very large mandates of like everyone in the company has to start using AI. And this comes down from the board, from the CEO. And, there was that famous Shopify article. And so, because we service these large enterprises, these large customers, we wanted to see what happens once they actually start using AI. So does the velocity really get better? What happens to coding practices? What happens to the risk? So those are the sort of questions that we were asking. And of course, we did that together with our customers in full collaboration. We did anonymize the data, of course. We don't want to expose anything too deep about these companies. And so we found a few things. The first thing that we found is yes, velocity does get better. Not a big, huge surprise there. So we found that it gets about four times faster. So developers were pushing four times as many commits. So great, right? But the flip side of that is that they're introducing about 10 times the risk, unfortunately. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it, right? Because the way that the AI works is that it's using the data that we gave it, which is open source projects or projects that were written within the company, and all of these things they have risk, right? It's part of our day to day. So we've trained these AI agents to use code that has risks. So of course now they're writing risks. Um, but the interesting part about that was that the types of risks that they introduce are different. So it's no longer like syntax errors that you would find in human-made pull requests, but it's now privilege escalation issues. It's now more exposed secrets in code. And the bigger issue here is that, again, it's four times faster. So if before you thought you had a handle on things, that is not the situation anymore.
So it's rather an oxymoron.
Well, yes and no. I think the entire way that developers are coding is changing. Right. So there's a lot more vibe coding. Instead of creating APIs, you use MCP servers. Instead of creating automated tasks, you use an AI agent. So all these things are completely changing the attack surface. And the companies are having a very, very hard time just inventorying everything. And just understanding what their attack surface is, and that is a huge problem. And yes, by the way, that is a huge problem that Apiiro helps to solve and helps create that visibility. Yes, but I'm going to put that aside. Um, the other part that we found, and that was quite interesting to me, but it does fit the human psychology aspect of it. Um, is so we've seen research where, and this isn't specific to Apiiro, there's a validation bias, right? So if you get something for free, you're less likely to check it, you're less likely to validate. And this is true all across the board with all different kinds of disciplinaries, right? Of disciplines. So like it's true for PMs and it's true for documentation managers and it's true for code and I'm sure for a bunch of other disciplines that I'm not as familiar with. But I think the most interesting part that we saw was that the pull requests got a lot bigger. So if before you had a single pull request that contained, I don't know, X amount of code, now you have 3 times as much code in that single pull request. And that essentially means that you're passing the bottleneck from the start of coding to the review process. So you're passing that bottleneck to the person next in line, which is usually going to be that senior developer who's in charge of maintaining the coding practices and the guidelines and the company policies and the governance. So you're passing it on to that point. And essentially what that means is that there's no one to hold the fort. Like there's not enough people. You don't have as many senior developers as you do the junior ones. And essentially you don't have enough people to maintain the amount of code that is now being pushed to production. So as we see that shift happening, we need to make some changes in the way that we govern code. And that means that we need to shift a lot more to automated detection and automated governance. And yes, exactly. This is where exactly Apiiro comes in, right? With the automated guardrails and the AI guardian. So it's a time of big changes in the software world, and it's a lot of fun to be here and witness all of this.
Absolutely. So, does this mean also, if I understand correctly, that it's also opening up more human jobs that are needed with higher skill sets on the back end?
I think that's a difficult question to answer right now because things are still in flux. But I do believe that at the end of the day, whether or not you've used AI to create your content or not, and it really doesn't matter what that content is, you personally are still responsible for the quality of the work that gets shipped. So you need to make sure that the thing that gets shipped is still up to par with the company policies and whatever other governance issues you need to adhere to.
Yeah, the whole human in the loop that we always hear about is still very critical.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So, so because of those key findings and you're in this every day working with companies, what advice do you have with business leaders as they do integrate more and more AI tools? Where should they start?
So the first thing we always say is you got to know what you have, right? If you don't know what you're securing, and I actually heard one of the episodes that you brought on someone from governance and like the US, a guy from Intel, is truly spectacular episode, right? And I really connected to what he was saying because he was saying how yes, you need to inventory everything, right? You don't know what you're securing unless you see it in front of you, right? So you need to know what your crown jewels are. You need to know where to place your focus. You need to know where those AI agents are running and where the MCP servers are and whether or not they're public or private or what sort of data they sit on top of, right? You need to know where the agents are and what sort of what sort of permission sets they were given, because usually they're quite excessive. So first thing is, of course, know what you have, right? Second thing is you need to make sure that you have standards and that you're not hindering the AI innovation within your company because you might get booted out for that. But you're playing along. You're a key player and you're helping innovate safely. And the way to do that is to implement those automated guardrails. Now, on the developer end, there's a lot that you can do. On the developer end, you can plan together with your AI agent. And when you plan, you bring in, and this is again kind of mirroring to that episode again, because it was truly great. So going back to that, he was saying how you need to pull in the experts and do security by design, right? He wasn't using those specific words, but yes, you need to do security by design, and you need to pull in the right people to be those experts. One of the ways that I see this market going in is that you're going to have these sort of mini agents plugging into the coding agent that you're using. So you're going to see a lot more sort of like plugins into your agent who are saying, oh, you're doing so and so feature. This is the threat modeling. These are the security questions that I would ask. Here are the things to consider as you're planning this feature. And so, first part is as a developer, you plan together with your agent on what's going to happen. Take a look with scrutiny, take a look at the plan of what they plan to implement. Second thing is you build it together with your AI agent. You run you run an AI agent or have, again, with scrutiny, make sure that you adhere to the governance, to the policies, whatever you need to adhere to. And then, of course, once it gets to the PR stage, once it gets to the build stage, again, the automated guardrails, you don't want anything slipping through the cracks. And of course, once it's deployed to production, you need to get that visibility. You need to understand what is actually going on because you don't necessarily have that visibility when you're shipping an AI agent that is autonomous, right? So having the runtime security tools in place to show you what is the traffic that is actually happening right now under my nose is going to give you that full visibility of what's going on in your SDLC, in your software development lifecycle.
Absolutely. And I would say from listening to all this, if it wasn't important before, excellent communication is going to be key.
Oh, definitely, right? You need to pull in the experts, explain what you're doing, right? And asking for their guidance because the market is it's evolving so fast, right? So the attacks that we had up until now, they're evolving, right? So if we're using AI agents, so are attackers.
Yep. It matters how you use the tool. It's not the tool itself.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what do you envision for the future as we do see AI integrated pretty much everywhere? What do you see, say, a year from now?
I think AI agents are going to become a sort of a platform. And then on top of them, you're going to see different plugins. So there is going to be a plugin for generating secure code, and there's going to be a plugin for generating localization for that code, and all of these, and product security, and I don't know, and performance, and like all these little sort of helpers that are an expert in their field, right? Because again, when you train modules, you train them on a specific data set and it can't be too broad. And so you're looking for that expertise. You're looking for the specific guardrails that you need to implement when you're writing code. So I envision something like a platform with a bunch of different plugins, each one an expert in their field. And again, circling back to that excellent episode, maybe there's going to be a plugin for post-quantum cryptography, right? So a, a bunch of different agents, each one an expert in their field. So at the end of the day, you get a result that is fine-tuned to the context of your application, of the countries, the regulations, the company that you work in, and the specific context that you have. Um, I think it might be interesting, and I don't know, it's a new thought if there's going to be a specific AI agent for the company context. And it might be like a general thing, but it would hold all the company context and everything you need to know about this company, who's in charge of what, and it's going to be very, very interesting.
That's a good idea. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all your insights into this research. And I look forward to seeing what the future holds. Maybe someone's going to listen to that and move forward with that idea.
Well, thank you very, very much for having me. I truly enjoyed this conversation. It was very, very fun.
Yes. And thank you to our audience. If you want to get any more information, is there a place they can go and view this report?
Yeah, it's on our website, apiiro.com, and search for the blog.
Okay, perfect. And if you have any questions, leave those in the comments and we'll try to answer. And until next time, have a great week.